Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back. What a blast from the past. Now, this is something I never thought I'd get my hands on ever again. This is a Radio Shack or realistic stereo audio mixer. Okay, we have manual meters for our levels. We have an attenuator, which is for mic. Line, of course, you can't reduce anything. Line is you have to control your instrument input, okay? But when you are using a microphone, you must be on the mic side, either at 0 or minus 20 dB to cut the signal back. You have no gain controls on this thing whatsoever. So if you did use a self-powered mic, okay, one that has a battery in it, like a condenser, but has its own power source, that's great because this has no phantom power anyways, right? But you could use regular microphones too. But you are limited to the type of hookups. You don't have XLR. This is old school, guys. So you've got the attenuator, which, if, like I said, if you're either on 0 or minus 20 dB for your mic, or you switch it over to line, which can be any instrument you want to plug in with a 1/4-inch jack. Works, okay? You also have other hookups on the back we'll show you in a minute. Balance control for left and right for your cross-fading of your channels. Low and high, no mid-range control at all. This is what we had back then. We have a monitor level control over here as well. We have master balance for the overall, and of course we have the master house. Okay, and each channel has its own independent fader for setting your levels with. So not a whole lot there, right? On the back side, of course, this is where we have inputs and outputs. Now, we do have, of course, our model number is a 321210. If you want to look up this model on the internet and get more info on it, maybe even download a manual, okay? Especially if you're going to buy this particular model somewhere. Now, we do have line-ins that are RCA. Now, of course, you can plug one of each item in through an RCA connection, or you can actually do a left and right kind of thing, but then you do lose a channel for each one. So you will lose one fader per if you do it that way. But otherwise on mic, it's one fader per mic or instrument, okay? Anyways, for outputs over here, we have a mono output to an amplifier. We also have tape out function as well, left and right. So if you wanted to record to a tape cassette, you could definitely do that. You can also use some modern little fandangled hookups and get yourself going into your computer as well, and use this in a modern situation, which is quite cool as well. You also have a main out. Now the main outs, of course, go to the amplifier, the same as the mono out would. It would go to an amplifier, okay? Your mains are going to be your left and rights. And you can get, of course, like powered speakers, for example, self-powered speakers like a set of Mackie CR3s or 5s or the Yorkvilles that have that multi-connection type capability. So you could actually just not even use an amplifier, just use self-powered speakers. I have a set of the Mackie CR5s, and instead of going RCA out from those to a 1/8 inch input, or in this case it would be out to into the speakers, you don't have that capability there, right? So what do? You go RCA to RCA on the connection to the Mackies, and that's your powered speakers. And you can also do fandangling to higher powered speakers as well if you want to use this for whatever purpose, okay? You can do DJ stuff on this. You can do your home recording studio stuff on this. Just like I can with my Yamaha mixing board, which is a modern day board, I can do all the exact same things on this. It's just that I am limited to the fact that I cannot use an XLR mic because, well, there's no XLR connection points. So we only have the 1/4-inch jacks for microphones down below, okay? So pretty simple, and power on and off is also over here. And when the power is on, the VU meters each have their own light source, so they can light up in a dark area. So also works really well. So these used to sell for a little over $200 Canadian back in the early 80s. So quite a bit of money for a mixer back then. And wages back then really sucked. Something like $3 something an hour. And so I do remember that far back, yes, because I was a teenager back in the 80s. And one of my jobs that I did do, I worked as a computer analyst, fresh out of high school, and then I later switched on to working at Tim Horton Donuts after that. The analyst thing was kind of okay, but kind of I didn't really like it too much in the end. So I ended up working at Tim Hortons. I've done other jobs since then. But one of the things I always wanted to do as a musician was learning how to mix my own stuff, learn how to record my own stuff. And these are great starting units to learn the basics and not have to be confused either. A lot of people get really overwhelmed with audio desk units, even in the case of my 10-channel Yamaha mixing board and smaller boards. You got a gain control, you got bass mid treble, you got this, you got that. It's like, oh, so overwhelming. This makes it simple, okay? You don't have to worry about gain controls. You have no mid-range control, okay, which can be a good or bad thing, right? Okay, because you should actually be able to have access to mid. But there's a way around everything, okay, to get what you need to really spice things up, right? But these certainly do work. They work really well, and there are ways where you can hook them into a USB interface of today's technology. So if you do get one of these things and you want to be kind of modern on one side but kind of really old schoolish on the other, right? You can still do that even today. Not a big deal. Now, these things are currently selling anywhere between $20 upwards to $100, depending, of course, on condition. This would now be considered to be mint condition, okay? And so it would be the higher tier. I bought it for $5 off Marketplace. Some lady had it posted, and it's like, it had a few missing knobs, which, yeah, that kind of sucks. But you know what? After all those years, the knobs will get brittle. So keep that in mind. You'll notice, well, I'm going to actually show you the original knobs, and I'm going to show you the replacements that I have here. Now, the original knobs have quite a long shaft because they're surface mount pots. And they have this little white pitot on there so that you kind of get a better visual of where you're actually sitting at for your left and rights, okay? But these knobs have gotten brittle, and only 2 have survived out of 8. There were actually a couple more that were in there, and as soon as I turned them or tried to pull them out, they shattered, and little bits and pieces fell inside. So I had to take the unit apart, dump all the little broken pieces out, which fine, at least they came out easy enough. But to find replacement knobs was a little bit of a challenge. I found some on eBay. They were the originals for like almost $2 a piece, and I'm like, I do not advise buying original OEM knobs from eBay because they're not brand new, okay? They haven't made this actual singular knob in decades. So they're going to be old. They're going to probably be brittle too. So I probably wouldn't advise buying those, and especially at almost $2 a piece. I mean, come on. That's a rip-off. So I found these little guys, which are a little bit shorter shaft, but that's fine. They're surface mount pots, so you've got plenty of depth there. It's not a problem, okay? This is over 1/4 of an inch in depth, so you're fine. There's 2 styles of these knobs, and this is kind of like they call it, I guess, a flower pattern, and then you have your D-cut. These are not D-cuts. They're like your spine, so you need to order the spinal ones. You get a pack of 10 of these from AliExpress for literally under $2. With shipping, it cost me like under $5 for a pack of 10. And I just replaced all 8. So I have 2 spares as backups. And this kind of plastic is actually a little bit better pliability than even what these ever started at. These were a very hard plastic to begin with. But after over 30 odd years of being around, these things can be a little on the brittle side, because as plastic ages, it kind of sort of decomposes, if you know what I mean. It gets harder and harder, brittler and brittler. So yeah, this is why I say don't buy original OEM stuff off of eBay if you can find it, especially at that rip-off of a price. Okay, so for under $5, including shipping, you can get them on AliExpress. And they're brand spanking new. Yeah, they're a little tiny bit shorter shaft, but it doesn't matter. Makes no difference. Now, I'm thinking I might try and find myself some sort of like a white touch-up pen for automotive, because they have that fine tip, and I can actually put the white mark into these new ones. Because otherwise I mean, the indentation's there, but the little white mark's kind of not there, but you could still see either way. But to give it a little bit more back to the originality, right? Um, but anyhow, for $5, how do you say no? And the unit works absolutely fine. Nothing wrong with it. You can even buy the original slider um, knobs as well at many places, because these are still actually used in a lot of mixers, right? And if you really wanted to modernize the looks of this thing, you could change these to a more modern slider system, but I probably would stick with what's on here for style, and they are readily available in all kinds of places, at least for this. But these little tiny balance controls, these are like AliExpress or bust. I mean, they're the only ones that seem to have them anywhere on the internet. And definitely that was a steal of a deal for under $5 with shipping. And they weren't due in actually until the 23rd of December. So it's only been about not quite a month since I ordered them. And I've had this unit for almost 2 months. And I didn't want to show it to you guys until it actually was 100% all back together again. So here you go. This is what we got. And it's a nice unit. It's great for starters. I mean, for nostalgic purposes is more where I'm at with it, but I'm probably going to hook this into my system anyway, and mess around with it, because it's been so many years, and I've missed that kind of stuff that this thing actually does as far as a sound difference, especially when you consider you have no gain controls and no mid-range control. And there's a lot of other things. I mean, when it comes to channels, right, where people are talking and they stop talking. Now, there is a problem here. Let's say, for example, in church. That's the best example I can give you. We've got like a 32 channel mixer at our church. We've got a glory board. It is really nice, okay? So if we want to mute a person, all we do is push a button and leave their slider alone. In this case, if you needed to mute somebody, you simply just turn them off. But then you got to remember where you last had them. So that is one problem. So that I wouldn't probably suggest using this in a church nowadays. Maybe back in the day, that's what they did have. Who knows? I don't remember that far back as far as what was in our churches for mixing consoles. But this was something that was sold widely at, of course, Radio Shack, because Realistic is the Radio Shack brand name of stuff, right? So this was more for people getting into DJing at the time, or basic mixing. That we did have more advanced mixers back then, but big money, right? But this was around $200 and some, and definitely worth the money. And this was one of the units I started learning mixing on when I was 15 years old. So I've been at it for a long time. Okay, so and I've learned a lot. I've made a lot of mistakes and whatnot too. But this for me was a great starting point. And I had this one. I had a little bit smaller mixer and whatnot. Also, by the way, you do have your headphone jack here for your monitors, so you can monitor your stuff inside your sound booth. Okay, so that's why you have your monitor control here with your headphones. You could plug a set of reference monitors into here and not have to wear headphones, because it kind of depends, I guess, on your purpose. If you can hear better through some really high-end headphones, great. We didn't have super high-end headphones back in the 80s compared to what we have today. Okay, so a really nice set of high-end headphones today would work really well through here. Or you could actually just use, like I said, a set of Mackie CR3s, or some other kind of a speaker that's powered, that you could actually cobble some wiring together to go to the headphone jack for your stereo out, and you could have some really nice reference monitors through your headphone jack here. Back in the day, if I wanted to private listen to anything that I was doing, then I would have to have headphones, obviously. So otherwise it was like wide open volume through my sound system, and away I went. But so very functional, very cool. I'm surprised at the overall condition of that thing for its age. I was expecting, to have a dent somewhere or something broken other than obviously, the little knobbies, right? But even the stiffness of the pots and how smooth they run is it's all in fantastic working order. And I was very impressed, and more so for $5, because I remember how much I paid for my very first one, same exact model, and that was a lot of money back in the day, but it was well worth it. It got me into learning how to do my own mixing as a guitar player, right? And so, because I play, I sing, write my own stuff, and that thing is just, I like it. I can't say enough good about it. It's just a really neat machine. But like I said, it does have a few of those downsides to it, obviously, over a modern day mixer. But if you get a chance to find one of these things and you'd like to experiment with some old tech and learn the old tech, it's a great thing to learn the old stuff and then bring yourself into the newer stuff, because you already have a really good knowledge base. Okay, modern day mixers have attenuators as well. Okay, some of them have like a switch control where you can dial it back in stages. That one's either 0 or -20. That's your cut difference. Okay, so it works though. That's the thing. But you just got to remember that the attenuator is only for a microphone. Okay, that's it. The line must be used for your guitar. Okay, if you have line out on your amplifier, you go input into there, away you go. What I like to is there is no gain control to worry about trying to figure out how to set it, your peaks and all that. Everything's all through your fader, right? So that's kind of like your main gain and everything all in one kind of thing. So it does make it simple for people who want something extremely, extremely simple, okay? And like I said, great learning tool. So, kind of worthwhile. I've seen mixers similar to this from Realistic at places like pawn shops, and they've been selling them from $20 to $60 to $80 because they're vintage. And vintage doesn't always mean it's worth a lot of money, but I would say in the overall, if you can find one in perfect condition, the lesser you pay, of course, obviously the better the deal. But I wouldn't pay more than $100 tops, and it better be in absolute perfect condition, like no problems whatsoever, no problems with the dial knobs where I had to replace all mine, that sort of thing, right? So, and you may find one too that has all original dial knobs that are still working fine. Just don't try and pull them out, type of thing, because that's when they're definitely going to break too. Or if you turn too hard, you could shatter the original knobs, because they are going to be old enough that they're going to be that brittle. Okay, but 100% originality would see the top end of $100 really easy. But I think I would still be at that $100 value range at the top end, even though I've replaced the knobs with brand new ones. Okay, they're not exactly the exact same ones, but they are ones that fit and work very well. It's just you don't have that little white marker on the top. And besides, these knobs last me, so I'm not too worried about them going bad. Yeah, anyway, but where would we have to score this thing? I mean, value for money back in the 80s, that's something that was definitely worth the $200. I mean, it was great. It was a great price, great product. It works. It was more advanced than some of the smaller models that weren't that much lesser in money. Okay, this was a little bit difference in money from even one of my smaller mixers. That's why I upgraded to the bigger. I needed bigger. So yeah, I paid an extra $50 or $60 to go to the bigger one, but the bigger one gave me everything I needed at that time. Even on my mixer that I have right now, I'm only using at any given time, I've got up to 4 channels out of the 10 that I have that I'm using. So do I really need a 10-channel mixer? Well, kind of yes and kind of no. I need the built-in effects. Now, that's something you don't have. You don't have effects. This is like the epitome of basic here. Okay? But I need the effects. I need a few other features. Even though I'm not using all 10 channels, I would recommend for a modern day mixer, start out with something with at least 10 channels in it that's got some built-in effects to it. Whether or not you need an auxiliary for stage monitors, that's kind of your thing, if you want to do that or not, but you can actually do that. with smaller mixers, right? You don't have to spend a ton of money. This is not going to give you stage monitor access. Okay, that's going to be the musicians should actually have the main speakers behind them, and then that's their stage monitor. And then this way there's also no fighting and no extra loud noise on stage, etc., that stage monitors have a bad habit of creating, including a lot of feedback. But anyway, I would score this as, $5 was perfect, but let's not look at that. Let's look at my experience with that mixer over the years, because I did have mine for quite a long time before I'd gotten rid of it. Value for money back then, fine, we're good. Star rating, overall, I would say it's definitely a good solid 4 out of 5. Even back then, I wished it had a few extra features that it doesn't have, but then again, it is what it is. They're built the way they are. So I have to go based on what it is. Did it work well for me? Absolutely. Did I have any issues? Not a one. So, being that, I'm at a solid 4 out of 5. Okay? I would have paid $20, $30 for that same board from the same person in the same condition, because to me that would have been worth it. But when I saw $5 up there, I'm like, I am jumping on this. What's your address? I will be there in 30 minutes, because I know there's vultures out there that are looking for these boards too, right? So this just happened to go gazing on my Facebook marketplace page. I saw it and I'm like, I'm in. Doof. You know what I mean? I'm on my way now. $5, here you go. Thank you. And then another 5. So I got about $10 basically invested in this thing for a perfectly working machine that's absolutely flawless, okay? And like I said, now I got brand new knobs on it. It's actually nicer. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about this sort of thing in the comments below. And do you have experience with this same model of mixer? What did you think of it? Or do you have one today and still using it? What do you think of it for today? I'm going to hook this thing in. I'm going to do some mixing with it, and I'll post a track up. I don't know exactly when, maybe in the next week or 2 weeks. We'll see how things go. I do start my winter time off from my job around the middle of December kind of thing. So that'll free me up actually the most time to actually spend time hooking this into my system. And I do have to cobble some cabling together, obviously, too, so I can hook it to my USB interface. But I'm going to do some recording with it, and then we'll see what you guys think of those recordings with this mixer at that point. So I'll have a video posted in relation to that in the title. But in the meantime, I'm kind of really happy that this thing is all back together and it's functioning perfect. And I didn't actually have to do anything other than just replace some knobs. That was like fantastic. Anyways, thanks for watching. We'll catch you guys on the next one. See ya.